Hi, it's Justin, and today I'd like to cover medical terminology and some meanings of what different terms mean. Say, like when you go into a doctor's office and they say you have a certain illness, or they say you need to take a certain test, and you have really no idea what that means. Maybe the doctor will kind of go over it, say, oh, well, it's this or that, but it's still not really clicking, and maybe, you'd like to know a little bit more about it. So just want to shed a little light on that. I'm not going to go too extensively into this, as, I don't want to bore you guys. If you're that interested in something like this, I would definitely recommend, like myself, pursuing a college degree in health and exercise, or any field of medicine for that matter, any medical field or health field for that matter. Alright, so what I'm going to do here is I am going to go through a slideshow that I made and narrate it along the way, and you'll also see me in the lower right hand corner as I go, so you'll be able to follow along, and I'll put everything in perspective. I don't want to make this real dry or nothing. I want to try to liven it up as much as I can, but for going through something like this, I thought a slideshow along with some narration would probably be the best medium for this, just so I can explain it along the way. Alright, so let's get started. Okay, so let's go ahead and get started. So medical terminology is the language used in the medical field. You will hear this lingo used in doctors' offices, hospitals, insurance company representatives, and more. It's important to understand the fundamentals of medical terminology in order to know what is going on at all times when interacting with health and medical professionals. This can definitely be useful in discussing proper treatment options and going over the prognosis and diagnosis of an examination recently performed. Understanding this will assist in making the proper decisions when approached by a doctor, nurse, or insurance company. It can also help in determining the proper nutrition and exercise regimens that are most appropriate for you. Alright. Okay, so when we're talking about medical terms, they consist of three parts. There's a prefix, a root word, and a suffix. Not all terms are made up of all three components. Usually they're only made up of two, so usually when there's a root word, most times there isn't both a prefix and a suffix. So, for example, cardiology, we're talking about the study of the heart, whereas we're talking about hypoglycemics, we're talking about low blood sugar levels. See, but neither one of those have both. There are a few exceptions from time to time, but they're not very common terms used. I don't want to get real in-depth in medical terminology because I don't want to bore you guys. Alright. Okay, so the root word explains what the term is referring to, as in gastro is talking about the stomach. The prefix and suffix explain either the state or condition of the referenced item, or what is going to occur to the referenced item during that particular procedure. So the prefix hyper would mean fast, whereas the suffix tachy, sorry, that was a typo, means slow. And in the case of a procedure such as rhinoplasty, rhino is the root word meaning nose, and plasty means surgery or surgical repair. Okay, when the root word and the prefix or suffix is combined, it puts the term that we're describing into action, such as the example I just gave, cardiology, or right here, rhinoplasty. Okay? Now here are some common root words that you'll see in reference a lot of times, alright? First one we have arthro, joint, as in arthritis. Cardi, so you have cardiology, or you have cardiac. Derm or dermo is skin. Gaster or gastro is stomach. Glyc or glyco is sugar. Hist or histo is tissue. Leuc or leuco is white, usually talking about white blood cells. Mam or mammo, talking about breasts, usually in reference into a female breast. Neuro or neuro, talking about nerve, usually in context to the brain. And for those of you who don't know, the brain is actually part of your nervous system. It's so I'll get a little bit more into that here in a moment. Oste or osteo, bone, like when we're talking about osteoporosis. Patho or path, disease. Rhine or rhino, nose. So like pathology, for example, would be the study of a disease. Osteoporosis would be the eating away of your bones from its own cells because it's not producing fast, and cells that build it up as fast as the cells that are breaking it down. I don't want to get real into that because I don't want to bore you. Alright, so here's a lot of them that you'll see in a lot of different scenarios. And as I put there, the potential connecting O isn't always used, but can be. So when we're talking about a dermatologist, you don't want that O there, because then it would be dermatologist. You just want dermatologist. Arthro, for example, you don't want the O there when talking about arthritis, or else it would be arthroitis, and it just wouldn't sound right. Whereas arthrology would be considered the study of the joints. Now usually that isn't an actual study, but that's what it would be called. Or leuco, we're talking about leukemia, which is a disease of the white blood cells. Things like that. Okay, so here's some common prefixes. So we have a or an without, acro, extremities. We're talking about things on the outside of the body, like your skin and things that are part of your integumentary system, which is, your skin, nails, and hair. Brady is slow, dia, through. So a diagnosis, for example, is a decision that's based on facts usually, okay, whereas a prognosis is an anticipated outcome of an examination usually. Difficult, such as dysfunctional, things like that. Electro, electric, we're talking about like electrocardiogram. ECG, or somehow it got called EKG at some point. I have no idea how. It's where it's using electronic impulses to test your brain or your heart. Now you have a EEG and an EKG, and I always get them mixed up, but I'm pretty sure that EKG is how they test your heart and things like that, whereas the EEG, it's where they test your head. For certain patterns, and it will usually do a certain pattern on the paper with the pins and all that.